Thank you for volunteering, David, and over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, that was an interesting little thing. Just as Noel was about to switch to me, my MacBook, which is running the Zoom application, stopped talking to my production switcher. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about video production for online streaming. Do some fancy button work here. I'm not actually sure how I agreed to this. I seem to recall I was actually chatting to Dave about probably 6 months ago about some of the issues which I was experiencing at work, and what I was doing to get around those. So this is the sort of thing I want to talk about. So the first question is, why am I doing all this? Why am I putting myself through all of this pain? What is the journey which we've been on, we being a group of people within my company who all have to present to customers and usually do it as an on-site business. Conclusions: what did I do right? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And then questions. And I generally find in this kind of presentation that the questions I actually get are, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should have done that, you shouldn't have bought this, you should have bought that. And I'm not in any way at all saying that the path which myself and my colleagues have taken is necessarily the best one. It is a path. So why am I doing this anyway? Well, this is not telling anyone anything they don't know. COVID has completely changed the way we work, but our customers' expectations have not really changed. The customers still expect the same quality. We have video conferencing is the new normal, Zoom, Teams, Skype, everything. I'm totally zoomed out. I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. And what used to be acceptable on an old conference call, you know, the odd conference call here and there, calling into customers or calling in internally, is not good enough anymore. And if they're paying, then there's even more pressure on us. If you look at that little graphic on the left there, this is taken from Tripcase, which is the application which we use at work for managing our business travel. And this shows my business travel over the last 5 years. Bearing in mind that I haven't done any travel at all since March. So far this year, I've only done Saudi Arabia, Mumbai, Jordan, and Kuwait. That was before the lockdowns. But you can see in the last 5 years, I've traveled over 500,000 miles, spent 865 days out of the country on 134 trips to 34 countries and 114 cities. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. When I go to a customer, my role is really in terms of implementation. I work for a company which manufactures application delivery controllers, and in particular, we manage or we produce layer 7 firewalls, web application firewalls, or WAFs as we call them. And so my job really is to go to a customer or a group of customers, sometimes, normally a single customer, and talk to them about how our WAF works, how we're going to make it work in their environment, and particularly if we're going to be replacing the kit they currently have with something which they're buying from us. We're not free, you know, we're not a free resource. Typically, customers would expect to pay probably minimum of $5,000 to have me rock up there for a few days and talk to them. So when we announced back in March that all business travel was cancelled and that we weren't going anywhere, I had some customers who said, well, okay, fine, then we'll do it remotely. And yet I had other customers, one in particular would be a university in the Middle East, who said, okay, we'll wait until you can travel and we'll see how we're going from there. And that sort of went on for quite a while. And then they said, oh, this isn't going to work. We can't afford to wait any longer. You're going to have to do this remotely. So we formed a team using the old Microsoft Teams application in the office, and we started to think about how are we going to service these requests? How are we going to support these customers in this environment? And so it was really a case of, okay, we do conference calls. What do we start? Well, we start with using our laptop. That's fine. And we open our laptop on our desk, and that's fine. And what we do is we talk, and that's fine. Except that quite often what we find is that we are using a webcam that's built into our laptop. The camera's shining up our nose, isn't very, very good. The microphone inside is pretty awful. We can use a headset, that's fine. And the light, generally speaking, the light in our home offices is pretty dire. So we have to find a way around this. So the built-in webcams on the Macs are pretty good, actually, but not wonderful. Sound in laptops is generally pretty poor. So headsets are the way we get. And if you are going to use a headset, get your microphone close to it. But light appears to be the problem. We mustn't sit with the window behind us. I actually do have a window behind me right now, but between me and it is my green screen. And if we are trying to mix light sources, we can get some very, very odd color temperatures, which make things look very, very strange. So the first upgrade, let's use our mobile phones. Let's use a mobile phone for sound. So what we'll do is we'll plug in our earpods, our wired earpods. If we had those with our phones, or we'll buy a set. We could, in fact, use a Bluetooth speakerphone. But generally speaking, a headset is more effective. So fine, we're going to use a headset, but we need to do something about the video. So the next step is, let's buy a webcam. So we can start off looking at these sort of cheapish webcams, the Logitech 270s, under 40 quid. It's okay. It doesn't have very high resolution. Its light capturing ability is pretty poor. You tend to get a lot of jerkiness if you move much while you're sitting in front of it. And then in terms of headsets, this Microsoft headset, the LX3000, 40 quid, works very well, And I noticed lots of the speakers today, and I'm including Dave and Noel, are using headsets. But if you are sitting with a headset on for 8 hours, and generally speaking, I'll do 8-hour days, maybe only 6 or 7 hour days, but sitting with a headset on for 8 hours is pretty tiring, and you can't move around very much, you know, because you're tethered with your USB. So that is partially a solution. We can get by. We get a better webcam. We maybe move the webcam away from the laptop, stick on a headset. That's okay, but we still need to fix the light problem. So what do? We all went to Amazon and we looked at lights. These are from a company called Neewer. They're okay, 40 quid for a pair. You get all these little fancy lenses, and they have little tripods. They are not the most reliable. The manufacturing quality tends to be pretty poor, but what do you expect for 40 quid? You know, they often are not very adjustable, and the color temperatures can be a problem. And you do need to think about the color temperature when you're setting up this kind of thing. And so a load of us bought these lights, and we all sent them back and said they're rubbish, they're not good enough for this. And then a company came to our attention, really through a lot of YouTubes and people using this stuff. And that company is Elgato, who I'm sure are known to quite a number of people who are watching this. Elgato have a number of different lights. They have the Elgato key light, which you can see on the left here. It comes with a clamp, so as long as you can get to the back of your desk, you can clamp one of these things on. The actual stem goes up over 2 meters, and it is a very, very, very powerful light. If that is too big for you, or you find that you can't actually get to the back of your desk, let's say, for example, if your desk is actually screwed to the wall, they do a smaller one called a Key Light Air, which is the one which I'm showing the top right here. That is a little cheaper. It's about £130 each. The big ones are 190. So we're talking about, you know, quite a large chunk of cash here. These ones have their own stands. If you can't get to the back of your desk, they're okay. And they have recently bought out the ring light, which is a 17-inch ring. It's Osram LEDs. All these are Osram LEDs. They're all very, very powerful. It comes with a short stand and the same clamp as you see on the key light, and that's about £190 as well. And it does include, if you look in the middle of the little ring here, it does include a mount for the camera. However, I've found that trying to put one of those behind my Mac, behind my iMac, the camera angle is too steep. So I've got one of these just standing on its stand. The thing is, you probably need a pair. I'm using a pair of the key lights to light my green screen, which is behind me, and I'm using a ring light directly above my computer to light my face, and my camera is sitting in front of the ring light. Just to show you the difference in this, if I switch myself on here and I turn off the lights, that's how dim the lighting becomes. If I turn the lights back on again, I can now turn myself off. So I have a very, very powerful lighting system. And the great news is you can control the whole lot through Wi-Fi. Bad news, only 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So you would need to make sure you have a 2.4 gig network as well as your 5 gig network. But that is a lighting solution which seems to work for most of us. So the next thing was to say, okay, fine. So we fixed the lighting. We're still using our crummy 30 quid webcam. We're using a headset. Headsets are a bit tiring. Let's move up a notch. And I have to say that not all of us, so there's about 15 of us in the team. We're a worldwide team of presenters and content creators. Some run our YouTube channel, some do our Whiteboard lessons, some are like me, are actually out pitching to customers, some are in sales. So we have a group of people and we all tried different things, but we said, okay, the next thing we need to do is to buy a better quality webcam and a decent microphone. So I bought a Logitech C920S. I've also got a C920, which I bought to go with my Portsdown, actually. But I've got a C920S. Nice thing about that, it has a little flap that you can close. So if you don't want to do a Rudy Giuliani and be on the net, you can use your little flap there. It's about £90. There's another one, a newer one, the Logitech Brio. It's a lot more expensive. It's £270. But it does have 4K output, although I have to say, very, very, very few of us do 4K. We tend to pick to 720p, 25 frames a second, which seems to be adequate for streaming. We need a decent microphone. So I actually bought one of these, the Blue Yeti. It's a lot bigger than it looks. It's a huge thing which stands proud on the desk, about 120 quid. I started off really liking it and everyone said, oh yeah, it sounds really good. And then I had people complaining about the microphone, which is omnidirectional, picking up fan noise from my computers, picking up me tippy-tapping on keyboards, picking up the creaking of my chair. It was very, very disappointing because of the amount of ambient noise it picked up. So the Blue Yeti didn't actually last very long, but the C920 has become quite ubiquitous, and it's actually a very, very good webcam if and only if you set it up. So you do need to think about setting it up. There is a Logitech utility which you can download from their website. There is not one for the Mac on their website, only for Windows, as far as I'm aware. That might not be the case right now. There is a very, very good webcam settings app you can download from the Mac store. It's about £8. And what I did to set that up was I started the photo booth application so I could actually see the output, and then started fiddling with my numbers. First things first, turn off the automatic settings. You do not want this thing hunting with the autofocus. You do not want the auto white balance. You do not want anything automatic. Set it all manually. Set the exposure mode to manual. Set your power line frequency to 50 Hertz if you're here. We found that setting the exposure time to about 300, which was about in the middle, was right. Gain to 0. This is so you don't get that reddening oversaturation effect. And we found that white balance set to about 4,200 Kelvin seemed to be about the magic number, between 4.2 and 4.7 Kelvin. And the good news with the Elgato lights is you have an application which you can run on Windows or on the Mac, where you can actually set the color temperature for each of the lights. And that makes a huge difference. So just buying a £90 webcam and decent lights and setting it up will massively improve your image quality. So my advice, don't skip that step. If you want to know more about setting that stuff up, there is tons of stuff on YouTube about it. But some of us weren't satisfied with that. So the next step is, okay, fine, we'll come back to the microphone. What are we going to do with the video? Well, the next step, as I'm sure you have probably thought about, is let's switch to a mirrorless SLR. The Sony a6000 series are very, very, very popular. The a6400 with the kit lens is about £850. It has an APS-C sensor, so it has a smaller sensor than a full frame one. And the built-in or the kit lens which comes with it is 16 to 50 mil focal length, which you multiply by about 1.5-ish, gives you 25 or 24 to 75 mil on standard 35 mil or full frame camera. And it isn't particularly light friendly. It's only got a f3.5 to f5.6 aperture. A lot of people did some research and said the lens we need is the Sigma 16mm f1.4. It is a superb lens. It is a fantastic lens, £380. The autofocus is immensely fast. One of the interesting things about the Sony E-series lenses, which fit into all of these alpha cameras, is that you can use the same E-series lenses on a full frame camera. So if you were to upgrade from an APS-C sensor to a full frame sensor, you can still use your Sigma lens. You have a clean HDMI output. What do I mean by that? You don't see on the output, you don't see the focal length, you don't see the autofocus square and so on. You can switch all of that off. And the A6000 does have its own HDMI output. You do, of course, need a cable for that, about 10 quid from Amazon. Recommended that you put in a battery eliminator. This just is a power supply and a false battery, which goes in the same hole. And you're not worrying about your batteries going flat. And believe me, you cannot stream for 8 hours in a day on a single battery or single set of batteries. One of the things which we didn't like about this camera was that the hot shoe is in the middle, and yet it has got a screen which pops up in the back of the camera and is beautifully masked by the hot shoe. So you might need to add a cage. There are a number of people who do cages. Ulandi seem to be about the best. I have a cage on mine which effectively offsets my hot shoe to the side, so I can still flip up the screen at the back, and it's absolutely super. So the next thing is, how on earth do we connect it to the computer? Well, for that we need an HDMI capture device. So I'll come back to that. in a minute or two. There are lots of YouTube videos on how to set up your Sony cameras. The older ones are 6000, 61, 63, 65, the 62, 64, 66. The 6400 appears to be about the most popular amongst the vloggers and amongst the streamers. So then Sony came along a couple of months ago with a brand new camera, the ZV-1. If you have watched any of Martin Lynch's videos where he walks around the building with a little camera on a stick showing what he's selling secondhand this week, he's using the Sony ZV-1. It is specifically aimed at vloggers, video loggers, or video bloggers. It is very compact. It's about 700 pounds. It has a wider aperture than the kit lens on the A6400. So you do get some bokeh, you do get some nice background unfocused effects, but you can't change the lens. If you can't change the lens, that for me is an absolute showstopper. I want to be able to change the lenses. So the ZV-1 was not a thing that I was interested in. Let's go back to the capture device. There is a dongle called the Elgato Camlink 4K, very, very popular, USB 3, it's about 200 pounds, very popular, very robust. Elgato do a number of other gaming and capture devices. They're all much for muchness in terms of price. Some do and some don't work so well with different platforms. I found that the Camlink 4K works very well. And then someone said, what about these little cheaper, nasty capture devices on eBay? They're about 10 quid, 10, 12 quid. So I bought one. It took forever and a day to wing its way to me from China, but they work quite well. They're good. They're cheap as chips, 12 quid. They are USB 2. You've got a USB 2 socket at one end, a plug at one end, and an HDMI at the other. And they are absolutely fine for Zoom, absolutely fine for Skype or Teams. If you're trying to run them at higher resolution at 1080p, 50 frames per second, you can get some choppiness. You do get some freezing of frames and some not very good quality. But for standard 720p, 25 frames per second, no problem at all. So I'm just going to show you a photo now. This is a colleague of mine, Eric. You can see he's using the A6400. He's got the Sigma lens. You can see he's got beautifully out of focus background behind him. He's not using a green screen. It's a nice, clean looking picture. This is one of the standard configurations which we've adopted. For me, the 16mm lens is no good. I can't get far enough back from the little corner of my shack. The rest of the shack is completely full of radios and stuff. I can't get far enough back. So I don't use that. I'm using the kit lens. If you want to look at it from the other side, this picture on the left is what Eric is seeing. You can just see his 6400 camera popping its head up above the screen. He's got an Elgato key light there. He's got a microphone on a stand. This is actually a Rode Procaster mic, which is plugged through that's an XLR mic, not a USB mic. So that's plugged through an interface. And the picture on the right is seeing it from the camera's perspective. This is the seat that Eric was sitting in here. So it gives you an idea of how it looks. As I mentioned, we really were not happy at all with the Blue Yeti mic. That really didn't cut it for us. So, okay, let's go up a notch and let's go for another mic. So let's get rid of the Blue Yeti and let's buy the Rode NT USB. I have to say, Rode make absolutely super microphones. This one's about 150 pounds, and it does include a tripod, but you can mount it to a boom arm. I actually have here in the shack, I've got a Heil boom arm with a Heil mic on it, PR781, which I use for my Elecraft radio. This will mount on the same arm. It runs on the tripod. It's probably one of the best mics around, but if we are using a USB mic with Zoom, we often get time lag problems. We get the mouths and the videos out of sync. And this is simply because the video encoder that Zoom is using is working harder, and it's not allowing the video and audio to stay in sync. There are ways of doing that. What my friend Eric has done is he's bought a bit of software which actually adds a time lag. So he can actually put the time lag in and make sure that it all stays in sync. I chose to go a different route. I decided that the way I wanted to do it was to send the mic audio down the same HDMI cable as the video. So it all arrives in my video, in my Zoom at the same time. So this is a solution, which is the one I'm currently using right now, which is I have the Rode clip-on lav mic Go, which is, they say, is a professional one. I think it's just got nicer clips. And I have the wireless Go system, which gives you a little, they're both USB chargeable, a little receiver, which sits on top of my camera, and a transmitter, which is plugged into the mic, or the mic plugs into, and that is then goes through the HDMI and arrives at the Zoom at the same time. After I bought that, Rode bought out another solution, which is this one, the Video Mic NTG. This could be the perfect microphone. It is a shotgun mic, so it is very, very directional. If you're not speaking at it, it won't pick it up. It is a 3.5mm mic, plus it has a USB-C. The USB-C is for charging it, and the USB-C is also can be used as a USB microphone. Best of both worlds. It does clip on top of the camera. It is a bit large. It's got a foam cover which goes on it. I found that if I put one of those onto my A6400, I tend to get a little bit of mic in the shot if I'm not very careful, but you can buy a tripod, it'll clip on, and use that instead. So that is a very, very good one. It's sometimes seen as the best all-round solution. I'm happy enough with the lav mic, the clip-on mic, which I think works very well. And also for me, because I tend to have a lot of stuff around me when I'm working, I don't have to worry about my voice going out of range of the mic by moving too much. Okay, so there we are. We've sorted the video, we've sorted the audio, we've sorted the lighting. The next thing was, okay, I do not want my customers to see the crappy old shack I'm sitting in here full of radios. So I need a green screen. What's the first thing we'll do? Let's buy a bit of green cloth, just like the one I saw folded up in the corner of Noel's office there. We found this was very simple, 10 quid for a 2-meter width from eBay. You can string it up with bulldog clips. You can string it up with bits of string, however you want. It's very, very hard to light. They crease extremely badly. You need to keep them ironed. We found they were as near to useless as you could possibly get, and nobody kept that. So the next thing was, okay, let's get one of these pop-up ones. Anyone who's been camping recently with these pop-up tents will know these things. They are certainly a challenge, a real challenge to fold. The whole thing folds into a sort of figure of 8 and goes into that little round holder there. They are very unwieldy, they're quite hard to manage, and they are very, very thin. So if you have any light coming from behind or any shadows from behind, they are shown through that screen. So let's go back to drawing board, back to our old friends Elgato once again. Their collapsible green screen, it is the Rolls Royce of green screens. It is amazing. The whole thing collapses down to that little box you can see on the floor. It is completely telescopic. It erects and folds down literally in seconds. It's about 150 quid, so it's not cheap. Don't get me wrong. These, Elgato do not make cheap stuff. They do make a pull down version, which you can screw to the ceiling and pull it down like a projector screen. I use the pop-up one. I find it's very, very good, and I can shut it down, fold the legs, and carry it with me. It's got a little handle on top. Very, very, very good green screen. Okay, so just a look at some other options. This is a very, very compact workspace where again you can see the Sony camera, in this case with the screen flipped up, a Rode Procaster mic, I think it might be a Behringer mic, running down into an interface. On the right, you can see he's got a whiteboard, an electronic whiteboard. This is another example here, cheap as chips. These little clip-on ring lights, they're designed for makeup artists. He's using a Logitech webcam. He's got these little clip-on lights. They're adequate. They're not great, they're adequate. He's got an XLR mic, and you can just see a Scarlett XLR interface here. This is an XLR to USB interface. I have a Behringer one. One thing which I decided right at the beginning of all this journey was I did not want to use my personal kit for work. The stuff I use for my Flex radio, for my Elecraft K3, I'm not going to use for work. So there is some duplication. Some people said, well, I do a lot of skiing. I do snowboarding. Let me use my GoPro. So the GoPros are a reasonable solution. Here's a GoPro Hero camera. If you want to use the Hero 8, you need to buy the medium mod for it to allow the HDMI and audio to come out. He's also using an XLR mic. GoPro cameras, they're okay. The sensor is very, very, very small. They have a new one, the GoPro Hero 9 just came out. That is has got a larger sensor. They do have a very, very wide field of view. So one of those wouldn't work for me here because I couldn't zoom it in enough to lose the outsides of my green screen. It's quite a pricey bit of kit. Hero 8 Pro, 350 quid, the medium mod, another 75. You can run it over Wi-Fi. There is an application to do that. We found that was a bit flaky for use as business use. It may be good in a multi-camera setup, and it is popular, of course, with vloggers. How do we control all this stuff? Well, I'm sure that everybody read the article in the CQTV about the Elgato Stream Deck. It is the most useful bit of kit that you will ever buy. They comes in 3 flavors: the Mini, which is 6 key, which I don't think is enough; the Standard, which is 15 key; and the XL, which is 32 key. I have 2 of the standards. One I bought quite some time ago, actually, for managing my Flex radio. It basically gives you a whole bunch of programmable buttons. You can program them for almost anything, and each button is a little screen, so you can actually put little videos on there. Little videos, you can put audios, or you can put not audios, you can put videos and pictures and so on there. There's a free shareware, what's it called, crowdfunded GitHub version of Companion. There is an application that comes from Elgato which supports many platforms, but Companion is a product or a project on GitHub you can download, and that uses a web interface to program the Stream Deck. And a colleague of mine, Robin Mordashevitz, has even written a headless Pi 4 front end of it. So you actually use your Pi 4, you upload your videos, upload your audios and any graphics into the Pi 4, and you control everything from the Stream Deck. Fantastic, very, very useful bit of kit. I also need a whiteboard. Zoom has a built-in whiteboard, which I find very, very hard to use. The reason being I can't draw with a mouse. What I personally use is I have an iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil, and I use that for quite a bit of my production. I can even show you that. Just give me a second. Let me just switch that on and switch it in. If I can find the pencil, which I've lost. No, I will not be showing you that because I've mislaid that. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, let me just quickly switch over to this is the MacBook Pro with the Microsoft iPad Apple Pencil. Microsoft Pro on the Apple iPad. So I can actually draw a picture, and we can say, okay, we have the internet here, and that's coming in through a router, and that's coming into let's say, a front-end controller. So I can actually use this and draw pictures. And I always use a whiteboard when I'm teaching customers or working with customers anyway. So that's quite a normal thing for me to use. Another thing which we can do is we can use a digital whiteboard. You can buy one for about £50, plugs in on USB, has a pencil, quite useful. I use the iPad Pro. So that was the sort of journey which we went on, and we had a meeting and we said, okay, we've got all the gear, but no idea how we're going to use all this stuff. What platform are we going to use? How are we going to actually make all this stuff play together? How are we going to make this stuff look nice? How are we going to do some nice video things? So the first thing we said was, well, okay, we need a streaming package. And we looked at vMix. I know that Noel's using vMix. vMix is okay. When we first saw vMix, we were so excited. You've got all these virtual stages. You can have your slides running in Windows. You have all these wonderful things. Customers felt it was a gimmick and didn't like it. And for me, I had to run it on under VMware, an instance of Windows, and it runs like a dog on VMware. So the Windows guys went to vMix, the Mac guys, we went to Minicam. Minicam is a very, very simple to learn product, very simple, easy thing. We got a corporate rate for it. We got it for $29 instead of $100 a year. We got it for $29 in perpetuity, and it was okay, but it's got some limitations. So for example, what I call Astons, because I'm an old guy, what they now call lower thirds. The lower thirds are pre-programmed. You can't change them. Horrible. So then we said, okay, let's look at OBS, Open Broadcast Studio. I think a lot of people are using OBS. It is very, very popular. It's very, very powerful. I think it's excellent. I really, really like it. Lots and lots of streamers use it. There is a specific version called Slobs or Streamlabs OBS, which is designed for streamers. It is free. It is open source. You can get it from GitHub or obsproject.com. Very, very good. I liked it at first. I liked it. Ecamm Live, really, really good. Ecamm Live is a very, very nice product, but it's $240 a year. And when I came to the end of my free trial, I decided it wasn't worth my company's money paying $240. Wirecast, another very, very nice package, but it's more than $600. Then there's ProPresenter. ProPresenter is very, very popular with online churches, particularly in America. ProPresenter is things where it allows things where you can have the bouncing ball over the words of the hymns that your congregation are singing and so on. There's also XSplit, Windows only. They say there's a Mac version coming soon. I've never actually tried it, so I'm not really sure on that. We need some editing software. Now, if we're streaming, we probably don't need to do much editing, but sometimes we do put some of our videos and things up onto YouTube or up onto our SharePoint site. So DaVinci Resolve is a very, very good editing package. Adobe Premiere Pro, very good package, but they both have a very, very steep learning curve. I've tended towards DaVinci simply because I got some very, very good CBT material on that sent to me. For graphics, GIMP, GNU Image Manipulation Program. Absolutely brilliant little program, totally free. Download it from the web, I think from GitHub again. Very, very nice. I tend to use Photoshop. I've been a Photoshop user for a very, very long time. So that's really the way that I moved. In terms of audio, I mentioned that in order to try to reduce the audio lag on Zoom, we sometimes use virtual cables. There's a virtual audio cable, which you can use for Windows. I've got one called Loopback for Mac. It's not free. Allows you, if you need to try to synchronize up your video and your audio. Coming to the end now. I think I've overrun a wee bit here, but I'm coming towards the end now. So what do we all do? Well, the Windows folks all went with vMix. We all went with Mac. Then everybody moved to OBS. We thought OBS is the way to go. We could share our scenes with each other. Everything was great. We had to build the virtual camera for Mac from scratch. You had to actually get the make file off of GitHub and build it. Well, when they brought out version 25, that became built in, which made it a lot easier. But then we started to get problems. What we found was that OBS and Zoom don't work together very well on a single desktop, especially on a Mac. What I found with my MacBook, and I've got a 2019 MacBook Pro, so it's a fairly new one, was that I would get the fans racing, and on a number of occasions, the PC or the Mac actually powered itself off. Spontaneous death, we called it. So we decided that the only way out of this was to say, let's dump the software, let's do what professionals do, let's get some hardware. So what do the broadcast professionals use? They tend to use switching hardware. So that's what we went for. So we have the Stream Deck I've already mentioned. The HDMI switcher from ATEM is a super bit of kit. 3 models. There's a very nice review in CQ269. Took a lot of the wind out of my sails. I was going to talk about this. The ATEM Mini, I would say, is probably not worth going for. The Mini Pro adds 2 very important features. It allows multi-view output. So I've actually got a little monitor on a stand here, and I can see my program output, my preview output, and all 4 of my inputs. It also allows you to stream directly to platforms. You can use the ATEM application, put in your streaming key, and stream directly to things like YouTube, stream directly out. And you can even, everything is done in XML files. You can edit the XML and add streaming keys for applications which even ATEM or Blackmagic Design don't know about. There is a newer version, the Mini Pro ISO. That I think could be useful for you if you were doing a lot of streaming. What that will do is that will actually allow you to, instead of picking the HDMI output and taking it as I am here as an input into Zoom, you can put a recorder on there and it will record the program output, plus it will record all 4 of the input video streams, all in RAW, and it will also show you the points where you cut between different things. So you can actually go back in post-production and edit everything. They also announced a little gadget called the ATEM Streaming Bridge. I haven't got hands on one of these yet. Basically what that does, it allows you to send your ATEM Mini output through Ethernet out to the network, and anywhere on the network you can see the streaming bridge, and you can set it up with passwords and everything else using an application. The output from the streaming bridge is then either SDMI, SDI, or HDMI. So we're looking at having one of those and putting it into our conference centers as and when we're allowed back out again. So we can actually have presenters streaming remotely, but having the HDMI coming directly into the large screen TV in our conference centers. So what is my final configuration? Well, apart from the microphone thing, which has changed, I have got my ATEM Mini Pro. I've got 4 inputs to it. I've got my Sony Alpha 6400. I've got my iMac, which I'm actually presenting this PowerPoint on. I've also got my iPad Pro with my Microsoft Whiteboard application. I take an HDMI out of the MacBook I'm presenting through to Zoom. And I also take, here, let me just, whoops, sorry about that. What's happened here? There we go. So I've also got my USB-C coming into my Zoom here. So I've got my HDMI multi-output coming here, my Zoom coming directly off the switcher. So everything's being done by me in hardware, which is why we had some little glitches at the beginning because my bloody MacBook died. So some things to think about. Aspect ratio default for PowerPoint is 4:3. You need to be thinking about widescreen 16:9. Select the best resolution and frame rate. I found, generally speaking, 720p at 25 frames per second is good enough. And we can turn our slide transitions off. Virtual backgrounds not as good as clear as a green screen. And check, record yourself and play. So Dave wants me to finish now. I can see him winding me up. So don't do as we do. Don't do as I did. Think about it. Think about need, not want. As radio amateurs, we're very conscious of what we think we need rather than what we want. What we want rather than what we need. Think about who's paying and then do your research. If there are any questions, I can take those now, but I think we're probably a little bit over time. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, David. That's really good. Sorry to wind you up at the end then, but we're running out of time. That was really interesting. What I'd like you to do, if possible, if you could take the questions on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen there. There were a few of them, but that was a really thorough run through and really useful because we've personally faced some similar challenges here recently. So thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll just take a quick pause, and then what we're going to do is move on to questions on the multi-channel DATV receiver that Brian G4EWJ played the video of just now, because Brian has joined us. So we'll take a quick pause and set up for that.
Thank you. I'll go to the Q&A.